3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
There is no other institution that has the ability, uniquely,
without a heritage, every generation starts over.
Ask not
to remind the current regime
what your country...
We, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do.
to get back in their box and stay there.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
From the Heritage Foundation, this is Heritage Explains.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger, first appearing in his 1933 radio show on Detroit radio station WXYZ, was an iconic American hero. He was so good at taking down bad guys of all stripes on the radio that he became a national sensation in comic books, TV shows, lunchboxes, toys, and movies. What's little known about the Lone Ranger is that he is inspired by the careers of real American law enforcement officers, most notably by a man named Bass Reeves. If anything, Reeves' story is even more astonishing than the Lone Ranger's. He was born a slave in Crawford County, Arkansas in 1838. He escaped into Indian country, where he learned a large range of native languages and tracking techniques. In the 1870s, he became a deputy U.S. Marshal and was a resounding success. He hunted murderous desperados, engaged in shootouts, and broke up criminal gangs. In his 35 years as a law enforcement officer, he made over 4,000 arrests. He's remembered as a member of the Texas Hall of Fame, and of course, as the Lone Ranger. It's because of selfless and daring men and women like Bass Reeves that Americans hold law enforcement officers in such high esteem. Where lawlessness is allowed to hold sway, a just and virtuous society simply cannot function. The days of the Old West are largely gone, but parts of our country still have a long way to go toward being safe. One of these, of course, is the southern border. The Biden administration has worked hard to make the American border with Mexico as insecure as possible, to the benefit of Mexican cartels and human traffickers. President Trump has promised new policies on border enforcement designed to make Americans safer and to protect national sovereignty. To this end, he has selected career law enforcement officer Tom Homan as his border czar. I sat down with Tom to ask him about this new position and specifically to shed light on one of the more contentious parts of Trump's vision, the removal of illegal aliens from the American interior by a deportation. He joined Heritage Explains from the road, so you'll have to bear with us a bit on the audio quality, but we are very excited to bring you this interview with Tom Homan. Tom Homan, welcome to Heritage Explains.
Thanks for having me.
So Tom, you've been in the game of border enforcement since the 1980s. You started as a Border Patrol agent, and now you've been tapped as the border czar for the second Trump administration. Why is this work so important to you?
Well, we know it's important to me because this is the second time I come back in retirement to serve President Trump, because what's happening on the southern borders has created the biggest national security vulnerability in the history of this nation. I mean that seriously. Even the FBI director, Christopher Wray, agrees this is a huge national security vulnerability. It's just not about illegal immigration anymore. It's about fentanyl. It's about sex trafficking. It's about people on terrorist watch lists coming across the border. It's about a 600% increase in sex trafficking. It's about a historic number of migrants dying crossing the border. It's about a historic number of Americans dying of fentanyl. So President Trump called me back from retirement for the second time. I jumped at the chance because I believe a secure border saves lives and makes this country safer.
So now that you're entering into this new second Trump administration, what's your vision for what the border could look like?
Well, I think there's three rails of priorities. The three rails are: number one, securing the border at the highest level ever, even securing it higher level we had during the first Trump administration, was this historic border security. We're going to finish the job this time and secure the border at levels no one ever saw before. Second rail, we're going to run a deportation operation for the millions of people in this country who have been ordered removed at the process that leave or illegally released in China. And the third is, we got over 300,000 children that this government can't locate. And these are many are going to be victims of trafficking. They're going to be in forced labor. They're going to be in forced sex slavery. We've got to rescue these children. So there's three rails: border, deportation operation, and saving these kids.
So the thing that seems to be in the headlines the most these days is deportation. And a number of mayors in blue cities, including Denver, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Chicago, as well as a couple of blue state governors, Illinois, Arizona, and Massachusetts, for example, they have proposed that they are going to remain sanctuary states and cities, that they're going to resist any efforts at deportation. How do you respond to this?
Well, they're ignorant. They obviously don't understand what we're trying to do, because President Trump and myself, we've been out there for months saying we're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats right out the gate. So for any elected mayor or governor, whoever, that doesn't want public safety threats, doesn't agree with us to remove public safety threats from the communities, are lost, right? Because their number one responsibility is the safety of the community. And that's a prioritization. And we should be shoulder to shoulder on this. I cannot believe these politicians are pushing back on this. But I sent a clear message to them: if you don't help me, fine, get out of the way, because we're going to do it. And sanctuary cities don't let us into the jails, and jails where we find a lot of criminal aliens. It's safe for the agent to arrest a criminal alien inside of a jail. It's safer for the alien. It's safer for the community. But if they don't want to help us, you're going to release the guy in the community. Well, guess what? You're going to get exactly what you don't want. That is more agents in your community. So your inaction, you're shutting us out of jails, is going to give you the exact result that you are fearful of, is more agents going to your communities. But you're forcing us in that position. So we're going to find these criminals with or without your help. So I think a partnership would be great. But if they don't want to have a partnership, fine, step aside. We'll come in and make the city safer for you.
What do you think is the motivation of some of these officials who want to engage in these practices? What do you think they're trying to accomplish?
I think some are misguided. I think some are they hate Trump. They hate everything connected with Trump. But, they push this theory that sanctuary cities are necessary because they think it protects victims and witnesses of a crime. They want them to feel comfortable working with the police without the fear of the police working with ICE. That is such a crock of bull. You need to understand, when you release the public safety threat back into the community, he's likely to reoffend. Where? In the community. So, by releasing a public safety threat back to the community, you're putting the alien at greater risk, because now we got to arrest him on his turf and things that happen. You're putting the officers at greater risk, because now they got to arrest the guy rather than the safety and security of the jail. Now we got to go arrest him on his turf where he has access to who knows what weapons. It puts the community at greater risk of harm. And look, when we have to go to the community and find them, what's going to happen? We're probably going to find others that weren't even on the radar, and they're going to go too. So your actions are going to result in exactly what you don't want to happen. More aliens being arrested. So you know what? I think if they sit down, like Mayor Adams from New York City's reached out to me, we're going to have a sit down. He wants a reasonable partnership and looking for these public safety threats. I wish every governor and mayor would do that. But I think a lot of it's just politics. And it's a shame they put in politics ahead of public safety.
A lot of the discussion around deportation involves actually going in, arresting people, and removing them from the country physically, using the police, using ICE, using whatever methods. But a lot of what you and President Trump have in mind doesn't include that. It includes things that are going to encourage people to go home voluntarily. Can you talk about some of those efforts? What is deportation? What is the process going to look like step by step?
Oh, look, it'd be a target enforcement operation. We know exactly what we're looking for. We have a pretty good idea where we're at. We'll do an operation worksheet and we'll go look for those people. It'll be a target enforcement operation. It's not going to be where I'm reading in some of the media, they're going sweeping neighborhoods. We're not doing that, but we know exactly what we want to arrest. Second of all, we'll do it in the most humane way possible. We arrest them, we have to detain them in an ICE facility, whether our facility or contract facility. Well, we'll hold them for a few days or a couple of weeks. Because people need to understand, once you arrest the person, then you got to contact their native country and get travel documents and permission. They got to accept them. People need to understand that prioritization is important, but let me say this. For those that are not criminal aliens, if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem. You're not off the table. And a lot of people say that's a terrible thing to say, and they're saying it's racist, and it's not. Look, a historic deportation outburst, what I call mass deportation outburst, has to happen. Because at the end of 4 years of historic mass illegal migration on our southern border, numbers like we've never seen before. If they want to claim asylum, that's fine. They want to see a judge, that's fine. We'll give them due process. We'll make that happen. However, at the end of that due process, if a judge orders them deported, we have to execute those orders. Because if we don't, what the hell are we doing? Might as well just abolish the immigration court. The orders don't mean anything anymore. Take the border patrol order because there's no consequences for entering the country illegally. You can't demand due process and at the same time not accept the final decision of that due process. And we're going to do that. So, and if we don't, the only option is let them stay. Then you send a message to the entire world. You can enter the United States illegally. This is a crime. You can show up or not show up in court and lose your case. But even if you lose your case, no one's going to make you go home. We're never going to solve the crisis that way. We're a nation of laws. So the message we need to put out right now, for those in the United States illegally, you should leave on your own. Because if we have to formally deport you, there are certain bars. You get anywhere from a 5 to 20-year bar of ever re-entering on any legal pathway. So if you want to come back as a visitor or a tourist, or maybe you have a U.S. citizen child or a relative that's a petition for you, you're not eligible because you got that bar sitting there now because you put us through the process of formally deporting you. So to open up legal avenues for in the future, self-deport. It's better for us and it's better for you and it's safe. So I hope more people do that. So that's the message we got to push out to the entire country.
A lot of opponents of deportation kind of make an emotional appeal. They say that this is unkind, this is inhumane. You've already kind of laid out why. But if you had to speak to somebody who was on the fence about deportation, what would you say to them to convince them that this is something that is necessary and good?
Well, first of all, it is, look, immigration enforcement has always been emotional. It's always been controversial. I get it. People feel like these people come to the country for a better life. I understand that. There's a legal way to do that and an illegal way to do that. There are millions of people standing in line right now, millions, that are taking the test, paying their fees, doing the background investigations to come to this country a legal way. I don't think you can be part of the greatest country on earth and the first thing you do is violate our laws. I don't agree with that. But people need to understand, illegal immigration is not a victim of crime. First of all, no one hires an illegal alien to work out of goodness or heart. They hire them because they can work them hard, pay them less, and undercut their competition. So a lot of U.S. companies are having a hard time because they're paying U.S. citizens a certain wage. You got another company, a rival company that says hiring illegal aliens that working half the pay rate, and that American company loses contracts every day because they can't compete for new work because the other contractors are doing the work for a lot less money for hiring illegal aliens. And I'll say this about people think this is innocent illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is not a victim of this crime. Let me explain why. Let's just use this last 4 years, for example. When you overwhelm the system with what you call innocent illegal immigration, just people coming from a better life. When you overwhelm the system on the southern border, you overwhelm the Border Patrol. And most days in the last 4 years, up to 70% of Border Patrol agents have been pulled off that line to deal with this humanitarian crisis. Using diapers, making baby formula, making meals, making hospital runs, dealing with the humanitarian massive crisis we're dealing with. They pulls most of the law enforcement assets off the border to deal with this. When you do that, that's when the criminal cartels take advantage. That's when they move the fentanyl, kill 250,000 Americans. That's why there's a 600% increase in sex trafficking. That's why I have a record number of people from the terrorist watch list in the country. That's when you have the fentanyl coming across, right? All these bad things happen because Border Patrol is not vigilant on the border doing the national security duty. The cartels take advantage of that. The cartels, knowing the Border Patrol is dealing with humanitarian crisis, whatever's left on the border on patrol, those in a big group of family groups in the area, knowing that will pull all the rest of the assets to deal with that family group. And that's when they moved the product, the drugs. That's when they moved the bad guys. That's why you have 2.2 million gotaways. Where do they come from? They come from our country sponsoring terror. So understand that what you call innocent illegal immigration cause all these bad things to happen because you overwhelm the system. So look, in this administration, I truly believe overwhelm the system on purpose for a couple reasons. Number one, to bring a mass illegal immigration into the country. Number two, we have so many people now waiting for the due process that some of these cases won't be heard 5, 7, maybe as many as 9 years, like in New York City. By that time, they'll have a U.S. citizen child or 2, or maybe 3. They'll have equities. Then when they get that final order removal, everybody says, well, wow, why would you remove that person that has 2 USC kids? This is what this administration purposely done. They're hoping they push these hearings out. They know that 9 out of 10 will lose their hearing. The immigration data, the court data is out there for everybody to look at. They know 9 out of 10 of these people get order removal, and they know it's going to take years for that order removal to come through. And by that time, hope they'll get another program to take care of these people they'll never have to pay. That is their plan. While they're putting people in hotel rooms at $500 a night, there are empty ICE beds at $127 a night. Why don't they put them in ICE detention facility and save money? Because they know if they're in ICE detention, the immigration court will prioritize that case and they'll have a hearing in 40 days. And 9 out of 10 will lose and they'll be deported. That's not what they want. They know if they release them, they put them on the non-detained docket, it takes years. That is your plan. So we got to get back to the rule of law in this country. We have a system set up to give people fair due process, but due process doesn't mean anything if we don't carry all the final decisions to courts. We're never going to fix the border if we go down that road.
Tom Homan, thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Thank you to Tom Homan for his contribution to this episode. You can follow Tom on X at @RealTomHoman. And of course, thank you to you for listening to Heritage Explains. You can reach out to us with thoughts, questions, or suggestions at heritageexplains@heritage.org. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Heritage Explains is written and produced by Mark Gagne, Lauren Evans, and John Pop.